Habs360 hotline, where joining us is the voice of the Montreal Canadiens on the TSN Montreal. We're proud that he's with us. Dave Randorf, thanks for calling us in, Dave.
No problem, guys. Thanks very, very much for having me.
So, Dave, the topic that we've been talking about so far has been the Montreal Canadiens being first place in the Eastern Conference. If you would have had this, if I would have been asking you in the beginning in early January, and I would tell you the Canadiens after 17 games are first place in the conference in the East, what would you have said?
Yeah, that's the question everybody is asking these days right now when you consider Montreal was dead last in the entire Eastern Conference 1 year ago. You know what? Going into this season, I firmly believed, and it was asked a lot, do you think they'll make the playoffs? How do you think they'll do? And I firmly believed that they were not that good, not a top team, but not nearly as bad as they were last season. I think a lot of things went wrong last year. There was a lot of injuries. There was a lot of things going on off the ice, distractions, coaches getting fired, players getting traded, and you know, it just snowballed on them. And they were a fragile team, and even games that they were in position to win, particularly at home, they let get away from them because they didn't have the overall group confidence. They didn't have the overall group structure that they have this season. So, you know, am I surprised they're in first place overall, having played one-third of the schedule? No question. Absolutely. But am I totally surprised they're inside the top 8? Absolutely not. I think there was too much talent here. I think when you factor in Andrei Markov being healthy, back in the lineup, you've always got Carey Price, and Giunta was back in the lineup. I think some more depth and some consistency as a line mate for Thomas Plekanec. I think it's safe to say the two rookies are a surprise, Brendan Gallagher and Alex Galchenyuk. Those are big-time surprises. But overall, I loved the signing of Brandon Prust the moment it was announced, and I'm not surprised by that one bit. I'm also not that surprised by Rafael Diaz, and then here's why. I'm not going to sit here and tell all your listeners and all the bloggers here on your site that I knew Rafael Diaz would be this solid playing with Josh Georges, but I do once a year go overseas to do the World Championship, and had seen Rafael Diaz before Pierre Gauthier actually brought him in. And so I was really intrigued to see how he would do, because I thought he was excellent over there. He was often the best player Switzerland had in the games that I saw, and was a very good defenseman with some offensive ability, but also great vision and great poise. And you know, every once in a while I see a player over there playing for some country, and I wonder, why doesn't this guy get a chance? And then lo and behold, some GM does give him a chance, and we quickly find out how he does. So there are some surprises for sure, boys, but so I guess I would answer that yes, I'm surprised they're first, but keep in mind, Bruce, that's 3 games at hand. That's an awful lot. But no, I'm not surprised they're inside the top 8. How's that?
That's a great answer, I think. But you spoke about Rafael Diaz. So when he came in the shortened training camp, Canadiens have a lot of players on defense. There's 2 of them that have consistently been out, well, one more than the other, Yannick Weber. Do you think this guy his days are numbered in Montreal, like he has no more future with them?
Well, you know, Weber, you know, ironically, just like Diaz from Switzerland, and another Swiss defenseman, I think certainly Diaz is locked up his position, and it's hard to, I mean, who are you going to take out of that top 6 right now, guys? If anybody has kind of slowed down right now, it's Markov in terms of his points production. It's very clear. He hasn't scored in over 10 games. He has no points in his last 6 or 7, I believe. So his great pace that he was showing for those first 5 or 6 games has certainly slowed, and I'm not quite certain what's going on with Markov, but are you going to take him out of the lineup? Absolutely not. He is still a premier puck-moving defenseman, a top power play guy, and he's just going through a quiet spell right now after a hot start. But after that, you know, you rhyme him off. I think Francis Bouillon has been a brilliant acquisition, a real nice, solid depth guy, and he has gelled very well with PK Subban. And of course, Habs fans know all about Bouillon, you know, a Laval guy and a guy whose career has been split down the middle between here, or Montreal, and Nashville. So they know all about him, but I don't think his game is lagged off at all. He's been very game and very capable. So Yeah, Weber is certainly, if he's looking to get an opportunity, I don't know if it's going to happen for him this year, barring some kind of injury to the top six. And Caberlet is definitely not in their plans, if you ask me.
And Dave, you're a lot closer to the Montreal Canadiens than we are or any of our listeners are. You mentioned a player like Brandon Prust. It seems like on the ice he's shown a lot of leadership, whether it be defending another teammate with. We saw him the other night. He fought somebody who was a lot bigger than he did. So when it comes into the terms of, let's say, in the dressing room, comparing it to last year, do you see like a huge difference compared to last year?
In terms of what? Chemistry and leadership and that kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yes, I probably do. I think, it's not single-handedly Brandon Prust bring that all together, but that helps for sure. This is a guy who, you talk about stepping up and standing up for guys. He went with Joe Finley the other night. Was he 6'7", 6'8", and Prust didn't bat an eye. Now, Prust is not necessarily a small guy, but that was certainly stepping up a weight class considerably against Finley, who doesn't have a ton of NHL experience, but a big guy nonetheless. But I think it's the continuing message that Prust continues to send to his teammates that I'm here for you guys, and I will always be here for you guys in every way, whether it's killing a penalty, whether it's chipping in with a key goal, whether it's tutoring, mentoring some young guys, whether it's playing shotgun with some veterans, or whether it's dropping the mitts and going after somebody about something that I didn't like or that we didn't like. And that stuff's important, and that goes a long way, and it is not at room. I've had several conversations with players about Brandon, and they all say the same thing, that stuff is what builds a group and what builds the camaraderie and chemistry off the ice that is so important once you get into the playoffs. This guy has been very popular with his teammates and the fans wherever he has played. He was voted as a kind of an unsung hero in Calgary. He won something called the Stephen McDonald Trophy in a time with the Rangers for a guy who gives extra effort, and that is a prestigious little club award that's been won by the likes of Mark Messier and Adam Graves and guys like and Brian Leach and guys like that. So that tells you everything you need to know about that award that Prust won with the Rangers. So he brings that. There is other guys in that room. Josh Georges is a guy like that, and Thomas Plekanec, I would say, probably a quiet leader. He's not a rah-rah guy at all, but you guys watch every minute of every game. Is there a guy who gives more than Thomas Plekanec in any situation, plays with anybody, just a pro who does his job? You don't have to be a rah-rah guy, and you don't have to fight to be highly respected, and Plekanec would fall into that category. So overall, the answer to your question would be, I do think there is that is a stronger element to their success this year and a reason for their success. And I think the coaching staff has helped preach that as well. From the moment Marc Bergevin took over and brought Therrien into the room with the guys and had their initial speech, he said, guys, and they've got it on the room. You guys know about this. No excuses. No excuses whatsoever, boys. And that doesn't matter who's hurt and who's out tonight. What we played last night, we're poor us. We had one go off somebody's butt into the net for the winning goal. No excuses. Just, we got a game tonight, let's do it. And I think everybody has bought into that and followed the system, and you're seeing the results.
All right, so we're in conversation with Dave Randorf, the voice of Montreal Canadiens on TSN Montreal. Peter, you have a question?
Since we were talking about Brandon Prust, I was pretty happy with his acquisition during the off-season, but we've had a debate of whether or not if the Canadiens had an enforcer-type player on the fourth line, if Brandon Prust could be even more effective, because he is a very, very good hockey player besides the fighting that he contributes right now to the team.
Yeah, Peter, you know what? That's a great observation, great point, and I'll tell you why. I was working with Dave Reed on Tuesday night at Madison Square Garden. Dave played 17 years in the NHL and has won 2 Stanley Cups, and he knows what he's talking about. And we were talking after the game, after the Rangers game, sitting there having a beverage, and we're discussing that. And that exact point came out of Dave's mouth. He says, you know what? Everybody's talking about what do they need, what could they add, and he says, you know what I think they need is, and they need a guy, a Colton Orr type guy, or I don't want to say John Scott because I really don't think he's much of a skater or an NHLer, the guy in it. But they're talking George Peros. George Peros, perhaps. And George Peros has won a Stanley Cup. He's an Ivy Leaguer. He's a smart hockey player. And I'm not saying John Scott isn't, but I'm just saying that overall his game isn't what I feel should be in the NHL. But regardless, yes, I think you're exactly right, and they could use that presence. Certainly not to be in the lineup every night, but Prust is too valuable. And right now, boys, he's day to day. He has a game time decision tonight with an upper body injury. They haven't said what that is, but you got to wonder, did he hurt himself in that fight against Finley? And if he did, that's not what you need. This is a guy who's played almost 220 consecutive games, and yes, he has fought a lot, but it's only a matter of time before he breaks a finger or on a helmet or something like that in a fight. And we know he will fight and will go, but he is too valuable to this team to have him out for a fight like that. You need somebody else to make Finley answer for that, or make the New York Islanders answer for that. So I think that's a great observation by you.
Just a couple of quick questions that we got from our Twitter followers, Dave. First one comes from Vasilios Banturakis, who asks, did Dave Randorf, grow up as a Habs fan?
I'll give you the exact true answer here. I grew up primarily in BC, in Vancouver. But I didn't move there until I was about 11. So I can vividly remember on many Saturday nights at my grandfather's house. My grandfather was he was a great guy, big sports fan, Italian, and he used to have this basement rec room downstairs, and my parents would go out on Saturday nights and they'd drop us off at Grandma and Grandpa's, and my sister and I, we'd stay down there, and there was my grandpa was old school, okay, he was old European, and there was no girls down there. It was just me and my cousin Steve and him, and he'd make food and everything else. And this was the 70s, guys, when Hockey Night in Canada, and especially in the playoffs, the Leafs weren't a factor, and the Habs were right in the middle of that run. So we watched, and I became, a Habs fan back then. And I really had Guy Lafleur was my favorite player growing up, for sure. No question, without question. Even when I moved to Vancouver, I always loved that. And it was from those memories of those great teams. I can name them all the names and numbers. I do have some history as a young kid watching the Canadiens, and I'll share another little story for you too. That when I started in the media, you know how it is, guys. You lose your kind of allegiance to teams, and I still love hockey and still love a good game, but I'm not a fan per se, and nor should I be. I mean, nobody wants to see me. Maybe some people do want to hear me cheerleading on the air, but that's really not the way it goes in Canada, maybe in the States. But having said that, I started working in the media in Vancouver. And remember when Lafleur made his comeback and he was finishing off with the Quebec Nordique? Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, and so he's making the kind of the victory lap around the NHL, and every team that he visited was having a kind of a moment for Guy Lafleur, or almost every team. And the Nordiques came through, and the Nordiques announced, okay, there's special media availability with Guy Lafleur, and we said, okay, well, we're going down to do this story. And I said to my colleague in the sports department, I said, you know what, you go interview Guy Lafleur. And he said, what? I think you're the big Lafleur fan. I thought you'd want to do this for sure. I said, you know what, this sounds childish, this sounds silly, but I want to keep all those great little childhood memories intact. I don't want to go there and have him be a jerk, which of course I know now he isn't, but I just want to leave all my little childhood fun little memories intact with my grandfather in the basement drinking root beer and watching the Canadiens intact. And you go do that, and so I never took that assignment for that reason. So there's your answer. Yes, there is some history with me and the Canadiens.
And John wants to know, do you see Michel Therrien as being a candidate for Coach of the Year?
Ooh, I don't think there's, yes, I do. I was going to say I don't think there's any doubt, but there's always doubt, I guess. There's some pretty amazing coaching performances going on right now. I think Chicago would have to be one of them. Ottawa would have to be another, given all their injuries. If he can keep this team in the top 8, he may be your guy. Paul McLean I'm talking about. But right now, Michel Therrien, right now he's gone from worst to first. So right now, is he in the conversation? No question about it. So, I've been impressed. Just to follow up, I've been really impressed with his his eye, his level of attention to detail, a lot of things. You know, pay attention to the game and look at key moments of the games, guys. When he calls a timeout, how about this one? New York on Tuesday night, and it is a 2-1 game. They've just killed off a penalty. In fact, no, they are killing off a penalty. I beg your pardon. And they played a perfect road game against a very good New York Ranger team, and they need a face-off win. And who does he throw out there? Ryan White to take a key draw. A guy who was in the doghouse, in his doghouse, for 4 straight games for taking stupid penalties. You know the story. And now he's just eased him back into the lineup, and he's giving him to take a face-off at the critical moment of the game. And he wins it, and 20 seconds later, it's into the empty net. So little things like that, I've been very impressed with Michel Therrien in terms of him being able to gauge his players, read his bench as the game is happening, and also to implement a structure that these guys are obviously following to a T, except for the other night against the Islanders.
We could also see that he did the same thing with Lars Eller after the opening night loss to the Leafs, healthy scratch, and then ever since he's been back in the lineup, we can't say too many bad things about Lars Eller.
No, that's another good example too. And Eller, you know, in my mind, kind of got in a numbers crunch there, right? They lose the opening game, as you point out. Then he's scratched for 2, and then they, you know, the 2 young guys look good, and he's got to stick with them, and then Eller can't get back in right away. But when he does, you're exactly right. He has been excellent in a lot of different lineup situations.
Dave, wish we could keep you for the entire hour. We really do appreciate the time you took to join us. And when I remind the listeners, it's Monday night, Canadiens, Senators in Ottawa, TSN Montreal, and if I'm not mistaken, we'll be with yourself and Bobby Dallas. Is that correct?
Bobby Dallas, exactly. Yeah, we're going to be in there for that game. So hopefully everybody's enjoying our telecast. We've tried to implement some Montreal media members on the road and at home, and we've just added Jessica Rusnak as well from TSN Radio 690 as part of our crew at home games too. So yeah, that's when our next telecast is on Monday, and then after that, you know, we got another one coming up in Boston next week. So we're looking forward to that. So, boys, thank you very much for having me on. This is fun to sit back and talk about the Canadiens. So enjoy the game tonight, and hope to meet you guys face to face.